environmental approvals, and we have given environmental approval to projects worth over $1 trillion. That's what this government is doing. This government is supporting investment and jobs, but I regret to say, Mr Speaker, that some Green groups are doing their best to sabotage investment and jobs in our country. Now, Mr Speaker, let me make it absolutely crystal clear. We want the highest environmental standards to apply to investment in Australia. We want the highest environmental standards to apply in new projects in Australia, but once those standards have been met, those projects must be allowed to proceed. Right. Now, Mr Speaker, take the Carmichael mine, for instance. Let's take the Carmichael mine in central Queensland. This is a $20 billion investment. This, Mr Speaker, is a project that will create 10,000 jobs. This, Mr Speaker, is a project that will power up the lives of some 100 million Indians for 50 years. So it's good for jobs, it's good for global development, and, Mr Speaker, it's good for the environment because Australian coal is of a higher quality than the alternative. But, Mr Speaker, this mine is being legally sabotaged by Green activists running a strategic campaign against the coal industry and, in fact, against all large developments. So I can inform you, Mr Speaker, that this government will repeal Section 487(2) of the EPBC Act, which gives activists the standing to sabotage decisions. We know, this government, where we stand on jobs. The question is, where does Labor stand on jobs?
And there is no doubt that the recent federal court decision in relation to the Adani Carmichael mine is a setback for the reputational risk of Australia, but it's also a setback for potentially 10,000 new jobs, primarily in Queensland. 10,000 new jobs in Queensland. Of course, there has been a litany of challenges against a mine that in fact is going to power the lives of 100 million impoverished people in India. It represents $20 billion of investment in Australia, 10,000 new jobs in Australia, and they're real jobs for truck drivers, train drivers, electricians, engineers, mechanics, geoscientists, stretching from Cairns to Mackay, Brisbane and Perth, right across the country. This is a test for the Labor Party. This is a test for the Labor Party. Are they more interested in the politics of the Green movement? Are they more interested in the preferences of the Green Party? Or do they really care about the workers of Australia? Does the Labor Party care about the workers of Australia? No. It's only the coalition that is prepared to stand up for the workers, and nothing illustrates it better. Nothing illustrates it better than what's happening in relation to the Adani Carmichael mine. I tell you what, we are going to stand up for this investment, because fundamentally this is about lifting people out of poverty in another part of the world as a result of Australia's surplus of energy. It is about creating jobs here in Australia that are going to build our prosperity, and fundamentally it's about standing up to the bullies in the Green movement who want to see an end to prosperity.
We need to find ways to smooth the approvals process so that we can actually get jobs being created again in central Queensland, building projects that will actually deliver for our nation in the long term. Of course there needs to be thorough and appropriate environmental consideration, but the way in which the process is drawn out week after week, month after month, year after year by frivolous legal actions that are not about the substance of the issue, but looking at legal technicalities to delay and delay. Now, this is not some kind of accidental or community-motivated process. The reality was that a prospectus was put out in November 2011 talking about an almost $1 million campaign to stop the Australian coal mining boom. So this is a deliberate strategy, and the strategy was circulated by Greenpeace, Coal Swarm and the Graham Wood Foundation. Mentioned through the document are well-known people like Drew Hotton from Shut the Gate, who's been involved in every protest I can remember since my childhood. The reality is that these people have got a deliberate strategy raising substantial amounts of money to stop projects, and they actually outline in detail their intention to use legal processes to delay and delay until the proponents are eventually exhausted and walk away. They don't win the moral argument, they cost us the jobs, but all they're interested in is delaying and delaying. Now, after this recent case, which delays the Carmichael project yet again, the Queensland Labor Minister demanded that the Commonwealth take action to fix the EPBC Act to prevent this kind of delaying activity from continuing into the future. Now, the Queensland Government, of course, is having it both ways, because on the one hand they're funding the organisations that are running the protest. They've taken $400 million off infrastructure expenditure that was going to benefit this particular project. But on the other hand, the Minister in Queensland, in the state Labor government, knows that these circumstances in the EPBC Act have the potential to delay and prevent projects from proceeding right across the state. We're about creating jobs. We want these projects to proceed. This particular project will create something like $20 billion or more in royalties for the state and taxes to governments. But it will also create 10,000 jobs. 10,000 jobs that will be absolutely critical to the people of central Queensland.
This side of the House knows that we need sustainable development of our mineral resources, including coal, to ensure that our economy continues to grow. The member for Maranoa also knows how important it is that Australia continues to have the most rigorous evidence-based environmental process in the world. And, Mr Speaker, once coal and other resource projects meet these requirements, they should be able to proceed without being subjected to what is essentially legal sabotage. Now, Mr Speaker, we on this side are concerned that groups with a philosophical opposition to coal are determined to delay and disrupt every coal project via protracted litigation, regardless of the broader merits of the project. So regardless of how strong the environmental protections are compared to where the alternative coal comes, regardless of how clean the coal is compared to coal from other countries that will be burnt in its stead, regardless of the economic impact on the community and regardless of the jobs it brings Australians. Now, Mr Speaker, this is not restricted just to coal. It covers infrastructure projects. In fact, what this environmental group have highlighted in this report that the Deputy Prime Minister quoted is that they are opposed to any form of economic development, and I table the report. Mr Speaker, there is a strategy to destroy jobs, and it's about time the Labor Party stood up for the workers. This question is about jobs and protecting the environment, and that's what we do on this side, unlike those on the other side who only want the votes from the Greens. They are more interested in the votes from the Greens than they are from their own workers. Mr Speaker, we know they don't like the mining industry because they introduced a carbon tax and a mining tax. We had to remove it.